You're listening to the Secure Dad Podcast. Discover ways to secure your home, protect your family, and embrace your role as a protector parent. Welcome, friend. I'm Andy Murphy, the creator of The Secure Dad. This podcast serves to help families become proactive in their safety. The information that I share on this podcast is for general information purposes only. My goal is to empower you to make safer decisions for yourself and your family. Today we're going to be talking about safety acronyms and mental shortcuts, so keep that in mind when I share with you about bad situational awareness. All of that and more ahead on the Secure Dad Podcast. So I genuinely hope that you are never in a car accident. And I hope that you don't need my checklist what to do after a wreck. But just in case, download it, print it out, and stick it in your car if you just happen to have a bad day. I had a wreck last year, and I used this exact checklist to make myself an asset at the scene. And you know what? After the accident, I didn't change a thing on this list because it absolutely worked. To get your free copy of my checklist, What to Do After a Wreck, check out the link in today's show notes. Also, show your pride in being a protector parent with gear from The Secure Dad. See all of the shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and stickers at thesecuredad.com when you click on Store. Acronyms can be fun. They're these abbreviations of the initial letters of other words pronounced together as one word. And I'm talking about, like, NASA. It stands for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Another good one that we hear now is FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. And even car brands have acronyms like Jeep, which actually stands for Just Expect Every Problem. Safety and self-defense have their own acronyms, and one of the most popular ones being the OODA loop, O-O-D-A, if you're not familiar with it. This one gets thrown around a lot, and there's a lot of strong opinions about it. OODA is an acronym for the cycle of orient, observe, decide, and act. Good guys and bad guys use the OODA loop. You may like it, and I agree that it has its place, but the OODA loop isn't the end-all be-all of safety acronyms, and that might upset some of you, but it's going to be okay. You might also be thinking about the 5 Ds of home security. Well, that's not an acronym by definition, that's just the letter D 5 times. It's used a lot. Right now, I can't even tell you what the 5 Ds of home security are. And you know what? When I had Clint Emerson on this show, we were talking about home security, and not even he could get through all of them. He was like, yeah, well, 2 of these things are pretty much the same. And he's right. In my book on home security, I don't rely on the 5 Ds of home security because I know that it's vague and I know that it's confusing. My layered home defense strategy is discipline, deter, fortify, and defend. You can't make an acronym out of that, and I'm really glad that I didn't try. But these layers are shortcuts for a larger concept to protecting your home. But why are acronyms and mental shortcuts so popular in self-defense and situational awareness? Well, that all comes down to a big fancy word that's called heuristics. In simple terms, this is a mental shortcut that allows you to think of a larger concept in a short amount of time to solve problems and make judgments quickly. There's much more to it than that, but for today's discussion, we're just going to leave it right there. We use heuristics every day, and we're taught them in school. Do you remember Roy G. Biv? Go ahead, say it with me. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Those are the colors of the visible light spectrum. Now, I learned that in school, and I honestly have never needed to know it since then. You know, look at me now. But there's one that you've carried with you that you learned in school, and you probably don't think anything about it, and that is stop, drop, and roll. If you ever catch fire, you're supposed to stop, drop, and roll. That's what the firefighter who came to your class taught you, right? That's what you're supposed to do. Now, I had Jason Patton of the Fire Department Chronicles on the show, and I asked him if stop, drop, and roll really worked. And to be honest, his answer wasn't comforting. He said it was better than nothing. So yeah, that's helpful, and I guess stop, drop, and roll is better than nothing. Cool, all right. So if we have all of these acronyms and mental safety shortcuts that are complex and hard to remember, then why am I talking about them? because there's one heuristic that I want you to remember because I think it's very important, and that is BAD. B-A-D. So let's break down BAD situational awareness. Now, I picked this up from Greg Williams and Brian Marin over at Arcadia Cognerati. This is not my own thing, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. It really breaks down to B plus A equals D. And this is where we need to be when we are proactive in observing our environment for threats. It simply stands for baseline plus anomaly equals decision. Okay, baseline plus anomaly equals decision. That's great, Andy. I can remember it. It spells BAD. It's about threat detection. But what do those words mean? Okay, I got you. So let's start with B. So what's a baseline? A baseline is the behavior and feeling of an environment. In short, it's the vibe of the place. At a library, you expect the baseline to be people quietly reading, maybe some polite coughing just to spice it up. But baselines aren't constant. They fluctuate. For example, if you take your kid to the park on Tuesday at 11 in the morning every week for playgroup, then you might see the park as calm, quiet, and filled with parents. But on Saturday afternoon, the park is the location for a protest where it's busy, it's loud, and it's filled with angry people. This is a shift in the baseline. But it's the normal deviation of the park because the park is a transitional space that is public and it plays host to many events. Now, let's move on to A. A stands for anomaly. Just like you may expect, an anomaly is when something is different. Anomalies can be positive or negative, and don't mistake positive or negative for good and bad. That's not exactly what we mean here. It just means how things are different in the baseline. A positive anomaly is the addition of a person or an object, like a loud person at the library. The person is acting out of the normal range of behavior at the library, and it doesn't make him a threat. He's just a jerk, but he's still an anomaly. A negative anomaly is something is missing from the environment. So let's go back to the library. Let's say you walk in one day and the head librarian has been fired and she no longer works there. Her absence is going to affect the environment because nobody is there running off the loud-talking guy. So the last part of BAD is D for decision. Once you've determined the baseline for an environment and you've observed an anomaly, it's time for you to make a decision. Now, for us as protective parents, the first decision should be, should we stay or should we go? If you're in law enforcement or military, your decision-making tree is going to be a whole lot more complicated, and we're not really going to get into that today. This is just the protector-parent perspective. So, once we come to a decision point in our equation, we have to act on our decision. If you're going to leave, then get your family and go. Don't second-guess yourself. If you think the anomaly in the environment is a threat or could escalate to a threat, it's best to leave. So let's break this down. You and your 9-year-old are at the grocery store, and this is one of those nice high-end grocery stores that are clean, the cart rolls better than your car, and they play great music from your high school years on the speakers. You know, the place that you're excited to go to. You're like, oh, I hope somebody sees me at this grocery store. So you've been to the store a few times and you know the layout. You're there getting all your stuff, you're taking a look around, your kid is behaving, everything's going well. You make the final turn to the back of the store to grab the milk and you hear a commotion. A male voice yells and then there's a crash. Now, this could be normal for a grocery store. Something could fall off of a cart, 2 carts could collide, or somebody could slip on something and knock over a display. These are all things that can happen in a store. But then you hear another crash, and another crash. And as you peer down the aisle all the way at the front of the store, you see that a man has turned irate. He is no longer in control of his emotions. He is upset about something, and he is literally picking up all of the produce and throwing it everywhere. This actually happened at a grocery store in Florida. Imagine that. So now, your baseline in this situation has been this nice grocery store where everybody is keeping to themselves, everybody's respecting personal space. There's awesome music from, the 2000s on the Muzak. Everything's cool. You're vibing with this place. You get it. Now, you have an anomaly of a man who is irate and he is now throwing produce at everyone. So baseline plus anomaly, now it's time to make our decision. Our decision is going to be, are we going to stay or are we going to go? Now, this guy doesn't look like he's targeting you necessarily. Maybe there's not quite as a lot of urgency, but he does seem to be throwing fruit at everybody. And quite honestly, I don't want to take a watermelon to the head. I don't think that's going to be fun at all. Also, they're probably going to shut down the store here, and you're not going to be able to check out with your stuff anyway, because most likely the cops are coming. So at this point, you make the decision that you are going to leave. You abandon your cart, you get your 9-year-old, you work your way around to the other side of the store, and you see I have a clear path to the door that I came in at the front, and I'm going to slip out that door. And as you slip out that door, the man becomes even more irate, and he is moved from throwing produce to he is now throwing jars of pickles at people. And now you are definitely glad that you left. So in this particular case, we had a baseline, we had a really odd anomaly, and it was time for us to make the decision to leave. And to protect your parents, that's what we need to do most of the time. It's going to be when we see that anomaly, if we think it's going to be a threat, even if it's not a direct threat, it's not intentional at us, it's something is happening that could cause harm to my family, let alone emotional damage from seeing some guy throw stuff at people and hurt other folks. B plus A equals D. Baseline plus anomaly equals decision. And this is your safety equation. Well, that's all the time that we have for the Secure Dad podcast for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to download your free copy of What to Do After a Wreck. Print out this guide and stick it in all of your cars, just in case you need it. Get your copy today for free at the link in today's show notes. I'm Andy Murphy, and until next time, take care and be secure.